Swayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvraja Acharya Satara Sadashi Shivana Bhaitarana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sigaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sri Radha Krishna Govinath Shyamakunda Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Maharani Ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Shri Srinitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Oh. Well, I'm expected to read all these texts, is it?
Yes, from 23 to 31. Yesterday we talked about 22 and today from 23
23
to
to 31.
read the text.
Is that because there's not many purports?
Then who purports?
There is. 24 has a purport. It's a small one, but anyway.
Or Kamalasita managing the schedule.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So I should just read the translation of the text, is it? Yes? Mm-hmm. When the ball, well, this is Mohini Murti bewilders Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is watching the Mohini Murti. When the ball leaped from her hand and fell at a distance, the woman began to follow it, but as Lord Shiva observed these activities, a breeze suddenly blew away the fine dress and belt that covered her. Thus Lord Shiva saw the woman, every part of whose body was beautifully formed, and the beautiful woman also looked at him. Therefore, thinking that she was attracted to him, Lord Shiva became very much attracted to her. Lord Shiva, purport here, there's a small purport. Lord Shiva was observing every part of the woman's body, and she was also glancing at him with restless eyes. Thus Shiva thought that she was also attracted to him, and now he wanted to touch her. So going on now. 25. Lord Shiva, his good sense taken away by the woman because of lusty desires to enjoy with her, became so mad for her that even in the presence of Bhavani, he did not hesitate to approach her. The Bhavani then is Lord Shiva's wife. Uma or Bhavani. The beautiful woman was already naked, and when she saw Lord Shiva coming toward her, she became extremely bashful Thus she kept smiling, but she hid herself among the trees and did not stand in one place. His senses being agitated, Lord Shiva, victimized by lusty desires, began to follow her just as a lusty elephant follows a she-elephant. After following her with great speed, Lord Shiva caught her by the braid of her hair and dragged her near him. Although she was unwilling, he embraced her with his arms. Being embraced by Lord Shiva like a female elephant embraced by a male, the woman whose hair was scattered swirled like a snake. O king, this woman who had large high hips was a woman of Yoga Maya, presented by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She released herself somehow or other from the fond embrace of Lord Shiva's arms and ran away. Okay, no, text 31. Tasyaso padaving rudro Vishnurad karmana Pratyapadyata kamena Vairineva vinirjita What? Someone else? Tasya, of he who is the Supreme Lord. Asau, Lord Shiva. Padaving, the place. Rudra, Lord Shiva. Vishnu, of Lord Vishnu. Adbhuta karmana, of he who acts very wonderfully. Pratyapadyata, began to follow. Kamena, by lusty desire. Varina, Eva, as if by an enemy. Vinirjita, being harassed. Translation, as if harassed by an enemy in the form of lusty desires, Lord Shiva followed the path of Lord Vishnu, who acts very wonderfully and who had taken the form of Mohini. Purport: Lord Shiva cannot be victimized by Maya. Therefore, it is to be understood that Lord Shiva was being thus harassed by Lord Vishnu's internal potency. Lord Vishnu can perform many wonderful activities through his various potencies. Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate Sva Bhaviki Jnana Balakriya Cha. That's from Svetasvatara 6:8. The Supreme Lord has various potencies by which he can act very efficiently. To do anything expertly, he doesn't even need to contemplate. Since Lord Shiva was being harassed by the woman, it is to be understood that this was being done not by a woman, but by Lord Vishnu himself. Tasyasau padavim rudro Vishnur adbhuta karmana pratyapadyata kamena varineva vinirjita. As if harassed by an enemy in the form of lusty desires, Lord Shiva followed the path of Lord Vishnu, who acts very wonderfully and who has taken the form, who had taken the form of Mohini. So yeah, Prabhupada here in the purport, he's explaining very, very clearly here that this was this was the potency of the internal energy of the Lord, which was bewildering Lord Shiva. This was not an ordinary woman of the material world, because Lord Shiva, he's one of the most elevated and advanced Vaishnavas. Vaishnava Yata Sambhu. Among the Vaishnavas, Shiva is considered the topmost. He's a very pure devotee of the Lord. Shiva means pure, isn't it? I saw an advert in the back of a bus in Paris for a cleaning company called Shiva. So they gave that name because, Shiva means pure, and so their function is to clean everything, make things very pure. So Shiva also, of course, is considered the topmost among the demigods. And he's very near to the position of Lord Shiva. The scriptures tell us that Vishnu has, Krishna has 64 transcendental qualities, and Vishnu, Narayan, or other incarnations of Vishnu Tattva, they have 60 transcendental qualities. So then ordinary jivas, let me say 60 transcendental qualities in full. And Shiva has 55 transcendental qualities in full. And Brahma has 50 qualities in full and may have another 5 partially. And living entities, they can maximum attain up to 50 qualities partially. So there's a gradation there between these different personalities. And, we see the Brahma is higher than the regular jivas, but Shiva's, he has even more qualities than Brahma. So he's very close and often addressed as Bhagavan. And as we mentioned yesterday, he's one of the guna avatars. He's a type of avatar. So for such a person is not going to be victimized by, Mahamaya, bewildered by like living entities, like we become bewildered here in this material world. No. So we shouldn't think in any way like that this is Lord Shiva's, become a degraded person in the material world. No, Lord Shiva is always pure and always on the transcendental platform. But he did request Lord Vishnu to show him this particular form. Desire, the great devotees, desire to have darshan of the Lord in different ways, like Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He requested the Lord to show him his, universal form. But it was so horrific that after, seeing it, he didn't feel comfortable at all, and he asked the Lord, please show me your original form. The Lord then showed him 4-arm form and finally a 2-arm form, which of course is the form that Arjuna always interacted with, being a close friend of Krishna. So, devotee might be a bit inquisitive to see one form or another, but ultimately he'll be more comfortable associating with the form of the Lord that he's accustomed to associate with. So, once that was just a brief kind of interlude there. We see in the 11th chapter of the Gita, Krishna showing his universal form, but generally he's in his 2-arm form, and that's the form Arjuna loves and feels comfortable with. So here also, Lord Shiva is, he has access to Lord Vishnu, to associate with him closely. But he's inquisitive to see this Mohini Murti form, and the Lord shows the form to him and shows the potency ultimately that he has. The Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, they have all transcendental qualities, as we mentioned. Krishna has 64, Vishnu has 60, is more than anybody else can have. So that puts the Lord in a very special position, very special category. And Shiva, even though he has so many great qualities, ultimately he's subservient to Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, and they have the power to bewilder him. So Vishnu's doing that here. He's exhibiting this extremely beautiful female form, and Lord Shiva, who's normally very self-controlled, is captivated, and he's running after this lady as if he's conquered over by lusty desires. But it's not some ordinary mundane attraction. This is a pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Mohini Murti is a manifestation of his internal potency, and therefore, more powerful than Lord Shiva. And here Shiva is being, shown his, limitations by the unlimited potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I just read on here, a couple of verses here. Just as a maddened bull elephant follows a female elephant who is able to conceive pregnancy, Lord Shiva followed the beautiful woman and discharged semen, even though his discharge of semen never goes in vain. But he didn't go in vain in this case. Not just he passed semen and that was the end of it, but next verse is explaining, O king, wheresoever on the surface of the globe fell the semen of the great personality of Lord Shiva, mines of gold and silver litter appeared. Huh? So ultimately, you can say service to the human society on the globe. Um, and this have produced wealth and the gold and silver. These are the precious metals. So he has created vast amount of wealth for the human society. Mm. Purport: Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that those who seek gold and silver can worship Lord Shiva for material opulence. Interesting. um, Lord Shiva lives under a bale tree and does not even construct a house in which to dwell. But although he is apparently poverty stricken, his devotees are sometimes opulently endowed with large quantities of silver and gold. Parikshit Maharaj later asks about this, and Sukadev Goswami replies. Uh, hmm. So yeah, Lord Shiva is easily pleased and also easily angered. He's called Asutosh. And his partial incarnation is Durvasa Muni, who is also easily pleased and easily angered. He can very quickly bless someone or curse someone. Although his power is also limited. When he tried to use his, his powers against Ambarish Maharaj, he was defeated. And the Lord Narayan, through his chakra, the Durvasa Muni, he had gone, it's a Kaddishi today, of course, but that happened on a Dwadashi morning. He was, Ambarish Maharaj is a very elevated devotee, very pure, and given as an example of a person who follows all the 9 processes of bhakti simultaneously and attain perfection by following them all. He was fasting once, Ambarish Maharaj, on Ekadashi, and that's presumably near Jala Ekadashi, because the next day when it was time to break the fast, suddenly Durvasa appeared with thousands of followers, and the king, being a Kshatriya, he was obliged to feed them, but they appeared just like that out of nowhere. And well, the king first asked them, go and take your bath, and I'll arrange nice prasadam for you all. And then in the meantime, while they were taking bath, he consulted the palace brahmanas. What should I do now? And they were obviously strict about these things. How can I break my fast? I can't take before the guests. So they advised him, take little water. Actually, after Nirjala Ekadashi, to break the fast, you don't necessarily have to take grains. You take some water, that breaks the fast. No water Ekadashi, so taking water breaks the fast. So he took little water, and Durvasa Muni, having mystic powers, understood it. And he became angry. So it is not good quality, to become angry like that against such exalted Vaishnava. Not only became angry, plucked a hair from his head, chanted some mantras, and created some huge monster, and told the monster to go and punish Ambarish Maharaj. When Lord Narayan saw that, he just threw his chakra all the way from Vaikuntha, and it decapitated that monster, killed him, and then began to chase Durvasa. So Durvasa had to flee. And he was fleeing all over the universe. This chakra, the heat of the chakra was very powerful, and he was pursuing him very closely, and he was in great anxiety. So he had great powers. He could mystic power. He could travel all over the universe, fly all over the universe. First he went to Brahma and Shiva and asked them for protection, and they said, "Sorry, we can't help you. This is the Lord Narayan's chakra. You better go and ask him for help." Then he went to Lord Narayan. He said, "I also can't help you." He said, "You've committed a great offense against my devotee." And he said, "The devotees are in my heart. I am also in the heart of the devotees. I don't know anyone else but my devotee. My devotee doesn't know anyone else but me." So there's a very close bond of love between the Lord and his devotees. And Vaishnava Aparad, this is the mad elephant offense. If there's a very nice garden and a mad elephant goes inside, it can destroy everything. I remember once being in India, and I saw a report, I think in a newspaper, that once in Assam, is a state in northeastern India, people had made some, homemade alcohol. South India, I think they call it toddy. There are different names for it in different parts of India. The homemade alcohol, they were stored in these big, barrels, huge, big containers. So this was, somewhere in the village, and a herd of elephants came. Looks like a nice drink, yeah. And they put their trunks inside, baby elephants also. And they all became intoxicated. And then it destroyed the whole village, in their madness. So this is a mad elephant. It's very dangerous. I was driving once in Thailand on a national park, and the cars in front of me were all backing up, so I and backwards, people were saying the mad elephant up front, don't try to drive past there. Car may be trodden on. So yeah, if one offends Vaishnavas, then it is very disturbing for one's spiritual life, and it's known as the mad elephant offense. So that was, actually what Durvasa Muni did. He made a very serious offense against a great Vaishnava, and but the good thing was that he listened to the advice of Lord Narayan. Lord Narayan says, "I can't help you. The only way you can get free from this chakra is you go and offer your obeisances to Ambarish Maharaj, Hare Krishna, and beg him for forgiveness." So he actually followed the instruction. He went and he apologized and begged forgiveness. And Ambarish Maharaj, he immediately forgave him. He even said, "Please forgive me." Actually, Durvasa Muni had been fleeing all over the place. It was one year of earthly time. Ambarish Maharaj had even been fasting so long because he felt he had offended his guest. So he continued fasting. Very powerful personality. Could fast for a long time. So this way the matter was resolved, and it's the proper resolution. If one offends a Vaishnava, one should beg forgiveness. This is discussed in some detail in the Madhuri Kadambani of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. So he says that he's discussing the different offenses, So he's discussing the first offense against the holy name. And there he says that if one offends a Vaishnava, he must beg forgiveness, and sincerely also. But if the Vaishnava doesn't forgive, then one should go on trying to serve him, trying to please him, pacify him, and ultimately get forgiveness. And if the Vaishnava still doesn't, if he doesn't forgive, then in desperation one should take shelter of the holy name. And in such a circumstance, the holy name will give forgiveness. Only after a long time of trying to beg for forgiveness from that Vaishnava, and if he doesn't forgive, only then can you try to take just full shelter of the holy name in desperation. If you commit Vaishnava aparad, he says, and you immediately try to take shelter of the holy name and think that you can get free in that way, he said, the holy name will not forgive. In fact, the effects of the aparad will increase. So one has to follow the proper remedy, the proper procedure for getting forgiveness. In that case, Durvasa Muni did it. But we should take note, of course. In our activities, we might offend another devotee. And if that's the case, we should be quick to ask forgiveness. Generally, the Vaishnavas forgive. They don't hold grudges for a long time. But sometimes the Vaishnava may feel so much, deeply offended, even very hard for him to forgive. But the offender, if he shows the sincerity and tries his best, and then if he's not successful, he can try to take shelter of the holy name, and if he's sincere, he'll get forgiveness. But anyway, here we see Lord Shiva, a very special personality, and is very austere. But Prabhupada mentions that his devotees sometimes become very wealthy. He gives out those blessings easily. But on the other hand, devotees of Vishnu, Narayan, Krishna are often poor. They don't, they're worshipping the Lord. Lord has a lot of opulence, especially in Vaikuntha. Lord Shiva is living like a poverty-stricken person. Vishnu is living like, a regal monarch. But his devotees, on the other hand, may be very poor. Why is that? Because Lord takes away often the material wealth of the devotees, so they become more dependent on him. And Prabhupada, he cites examples from his own life, how he was, a businessman, and he could have become wealthy, but Krishna took it all away and made him just a beggar, you could say, so that he was fully dependent on the Lord. And we see how Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan, in the 50s, very simply, just a little cloth, and it's. I was reading a book. There's a book called Srila Prabhupada, Our Greatest Friend, I think. It's a book compiled by a god sister called Mula Prakriti. And it's a series of interviews with persons who knew Prabhupada before he went to the West. So, devotees in Gaudiya Math, and on Brijbasi's devotees in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada used to print Back to Godhead. Started in 1944, before the end of the war. Then it was just like a one-sheet newspaper. But Prabhupada continued to publish Back to Godhead for the rest of his life. Of course, when he went to the West and spread Krishna consciousness, then it became a color magazine, and at one point he was actually printing 1 million English Back to Godheads a month. What to speak of in other languages? So, anyway, during the 50s, he would write articles to publish the Back to Godhead, and then he would go to Delhi and he would print it, and then he would bring back the new issue, and he had subscribers, huh? So he used to go around the subscribers, give them the new edition, and then we collect some subscriptions. So this one of the Brijbasis, he describing it, Prabhupada, his transport was an old bicycle, and it made some kind of funny noise, so they could hear it coming from far away, that he is coming with a new edition of Back to Godhead. But we see, he was living in a very, very simple way. You could say, in a, almost like a poverty-stricken condition. But Prabhupada was not concerned. I mean, that's a mundane viewpoint. If we say poverty-stricken, obviously he was a very wealthy, spiritually wealthy personality, and also he was satisfied to live simply. He didn't have any, he in a family life, he had some aspirations, to develop his business and to become wealthy. But after he left that situation, in a sense, Krishna forced him into it. It's also described in that book. There's some interesting interview with Govinda Maharaj, who became the Acharya after Sridhar Maharaj in the Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. And I think, I'm not sure there's an interview with Sridhar Maharaj. Maybe there is also. Yeah, I think so. But they both said basically the same thing, that, Prabhupada in Calcutta in the 1940s, he had rented 2 houses side by side. One was for his family, and in the other one he had his, pharmaceutical laboratory on the ground floor downstairs, and then upstairs it was like a apartment to host his godbrothers when they came into Calcutta. They were based in Mayapur in the Sri Chaitanya Mat, and then they would come into Calcutta. And of course, at that time, the Gaudiya Mat was kind of breaking up, and they did actually form, Prabhupada and I think 2 of his godbrothers, at least, Keshav Maharaj and Sridhar Maharaj, I think they formed a Gaudiya Vaishnav Samiti, because, already Gaudiya Mat was kind of, breaking up like that. And different devotees were forming different organizations, like Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, etc., all these different organizations. Anyway, they had formed this Gaudiya Vaishnav Samiti. So Prabhupada created that space above his pharmaceutical laboratory to host them when they came into Calcutta. And it is described, I think, both by Govinda Maharaj and Sridhar Maharaj. One, in the night, Prabhupada had a dream of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, telling him to take sannyas. And Prabhupada said at first he thought, oh, it's horrible. I mean, he said he wasn't looking forward to that. It seemed like a very difficult thing to do, to give up one's family. And Prabhupada had, altogether 5 children, 3 sons, 2 daughters. It was, it was out of the blue that dream came, ordering to take sannyas, and he went next door and he went upstairs and he banged on the door in the night, and Sridhar Maharaj, he asked Sridhar Maharaj, give me sannyas immediately. And Gurudev, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur has ordered me in a dream. And Sridhar Maharaj said, hold on, take it easy, move slowly. Because Sridhar Maharaj, he was also cultivating members of Prabhupada's family, preaching to them about Krishna consciousness. And in India, families are very big. This is not, when we talk about family, it's not just a husband, wife, and a few children, but they're all, kinds of relatives. And Sridhar Maharaj didn't want to, disturb his relationship with him. He said, wait for some time, think it over, which normally that's the kind of advice you would give someone who is aspiring to take sannyas. So, okay, Prabhupada, he went back, continued with his activities. A few months later, same thing, again, bang, bang in the middle of the night, and please give me sannyas immediately. And Sridhar Maharaj, he wasn't about to agree. He said maybe better to go and take from Keshav Maharaj, who had in Mathura, where Prabhupada eventually took sannyas there. But the next morning, after when Sridhar Maharaj didn't agree, to give him the spot, next morning, Prabhupada was gone, didn't take anything. No suitcase or bag or clothes or money, just gone like that. He just left everything. But that was the power of his, dedication to his spiritual master. Seeing that dream twice, at least twice, and he was convinced, and he left. So when he went to, Vrindavan, he had very little. Of course, he went to Jhansi also, wasn't it? I don't remember exactly all the chronology. In the early 50s, or late 40s, early 50s, he had also been trying to develop something in Jhansi, but, he had gotten a building free of charge, but then he lost that because the wife of some, council member in the government had wanted to use it for some ladies' organization like that. But so anyway, Prabhupada was living in a very, very seemingly poverty-stricken situation, but he wasn't disturbed. He was always Krishna conscious. He had a very clear focus on what his mission in life was. So Lord Shiva also, like that, lives simply, and many great Vaishnavas. Kolavecha Sridhar, for example, he was a banana seller. A kola is a banana, vecha is a seller. A kolavecha, he was a banana seller, and all he sold was bananas and banana leaf plates and leaf cups and banana stems and banana flour. In Bengal, you can make sabji from banana flour, and even banana stem. Banana plant has many uses, but it's very common. It's not a valuable item. So he just would earn a few paisa, and somehow managed to maintain his family. But his hut was just a bamboo hut, and even the roof was leaking. And people would criticize him, we all night you're crying, Krishna, 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 but your children aren't properly dressed like that. So he was a very poor Vaishnava, but he was a very dear to Lord Chaitanya. And when Lord Chaitanya on Harinam passed his hut, there was an iron pot outside with water, and Lord Chaitanya began drinking from it. And as Kulavit said, "This is not suitable for you, my Lord." But the Lord Chaitanya says, "This is great nectar." He said, so he was very, very, affectionate to Kulavit. He used to, when he was a householder, he used to go and bargain with him for, bananas or banana plates or whatever, banana leaf plates. And Kolovicha would say, no, he would state the price, and Nimai Pandit would offer lower, and he would always offer less than the cost price. and Kolovicha says, it's just not possible for me to do business like this. Then the Lord would just snatch, whatever items he wanted and throw some, paisa to him. But Kolovich, of course, was very, very pleased. He was a great lover of the Lord. So in this way, and there are many, many examples of such great devotees. But then again, when Prabhupada came to the West, and by his preaching, he made so many devotees and opened so many temples. And he would say like that, when I came to America, I had 40 rupees. Now I have 40 crores. The big properties all over the world. And he said, I gave up a small family, but now I have, thousands of sons and daughters. So like that. The situation, external situation, at least in his life, changed dramatically. His spiritual focus was always the same. And he understood the value also of things and money. He was very strict with the funds that came to India. For example, in Vrindavan construction, the money would come in. There were three signers on the account, the Sorabi, and I guess maybe Gurunava or someone else, and Prabhupada. Even to get the money out of the bank, they had to send the checks, and Prabhupada would sign them, and they would post them back. So he was very strict about the money, and he would criticize the Western devotee. Western devotees, they would be going, buying things, and Indian storekeepers would cheat them. They would tell him, this is price very cheap, damn cheap, Babu. Prabhupada imitated that, damn cheap, Babu. The Westerners were, damn, that's a sort of slang word, cheap, very cheap, let's say, very cheap. But actually, the price is very high. But the Westerners they have so much money, and they're not very strict about it. So they're throwing it here and there. Damn cheap, Babu. So Prabhupada was, he was critical of his disciples, trying to train them to be very strict in looking after Krishna's money and all the items and paraphernalia that's owned by the temples and by the devotees, that should be careful with it. Should keep accounts properly, and not waste Krishna's money or Krishna's energy, because there may be some reaction for that later also. But anyway, we want to make sure that Krishna's money, Krishna's energy is used in the proper way in the service of Krishna. So anyway, devotee may be poor, a devotee may be wealthy, but he is always fixed in Krishna consciousness, or should always be fixed in Krishna consciousness. These are great examples. Srila Prabhupada and Lord Shiva himself, could live very simply, frugally, and still very blissfully in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so Hare Krishna. Any question or comment? Yes, please.
Немножко, может быть, глупый вопрос. Ситуация с Дурвасамуни и чакрой. Чакра — это мощное оружие Господа Кришны, Вишну, да, и она мгновенно может снести голову. И как так получилось, что Дурваса Муни смог от нее убегать очень долго? То есть чакра он немножечко притормаживал.
He's saying, how come he could, he was able to run away from the chakra? Was the chakra, did it have brakes to slow it down? No. But Durvasamuni had mystic powers, which were ultimately given to him by the Lord, and he's a partial expansion of Lord Shiva. So, there's nowhere stated that the chakra had brakes. Of course, what are the details inside it all? I mean, it could be Lord Vishnu was just, Lord Narayan was just, playing with him a bit, playing with Durvasa, and he could have made the chakra go faster. Well, ultimately he could, isn't it? But on the other side, Durvasa Muni had great mystic powers. He was able to even reach Vaikuntha and, asked for help from the Lord. But I don't think we should speculate here. Yes.
The Lord is also very merciful. And he could have easily killed the Vasamuni.
Yes.
But he wanted him to give an example for surrendering when someone has committed an offense, and he gets the chance to just go to this person and ask for forgiveness. And that was what the Lord actually wanted from him.
That's good. That's the good answer. Yes.
You said you mentioned 1 million Back to Godhead magazines in 1 month. When and where was it? These 1 million Back to Godhead?
I mean, that would have been around 1975.
All over the world,
Well, they were printed in the U.S., but I mean, they were shipped to the English-speaking countries. In UK, we got, and in India, they actually Prabhupada started a life membership program, and one of the benefits that people would receive the Back to Godhead regularly. So they were sent to India also, and they were distributed to life members. Around that time, when there was Radha Damodar party in the USA, so it was a very powerful party. I mean, there were, I think, about 9 big buses. Every bus had a couple of sannyasis and many brahmacharis, and there were satellite vans. Every bus had, a few vans that were traveling with it. So the buses would go to the university campuses, and then it was Vishnujan Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and they were doing programs, and they had, nice musical instruments. They had nice kirtan. Vishnujan, a famous singer, a kirtan leader, and they made devotees from the students. And meanwhile, the satellite vans were going out to the neighboring towns and cities and distributing huge quantities of books. So back to Godhead, they were also distributing. So it was a very special era. Prabhupada was pushing the book distribution. Then he was also building the temples in India. So that, the books and magazines were going out, and the money was coming into BBT, and BBT was sending a lot of money to India for construction. There was, especially at that time, then 75, 76, when the Radha Damodar party was like in full strength. Then we were constructing the Bombay temple. When Vrindavan temple was constructed, Sarabi, Gunarnava, they were hiring different contractors to do different parts of the work, but it went very slowly. The temple was supposed to be opened on Janmashtami 74, and Prabhupada even invited the governor of Uttar Pradesh. But when Prabhupada came to Vrindavan and nothing ready, wasn't ready, and he was really angry, and then he pushed the devotees, and they got it opened by Ramnami 1975. Then they moved, the construction crew moved to Bombay and started doing the construction in the same way, hiring different contractors for different parts of the work. But again, it was going very slow. I was sent to India at that time. I'd been president of the temples in London, and Prabhupada wanted devotees with the British passports who had some managerial experience, because they didn't need visas. I mean, we had sent devotees to India before. Prabhupada asked on several occasions, and we had to send devotees to India. And then Prabhupada wanted some with managerial experience. So I got sent to India, and when I reached Bombay, well, I landed in the airport. I mean, I was in shock. I didn't expect to go to India. I mean, Hansadutta just said, book your ticket and go. So when I reached India, and within a few hours in Bombay, I was called into Prabhupada's room, and he said, who's managing the temples in London? And I told him, and he said, it's good you came to India. Now I manage this temple. So, that was quite a shock for me, It's like to be asked to manage a Juhu temple, and I had no experience of management in India. But anyway, that was the order of Srila Prabhupada. But what happened at that time was Prabhupada wasn't happy with the way the construction was going, too slowly, and too much room for, cheating, and the devotee contractors might cheat the devotees. So he decided to sign a contract with a very big construction company, Larsen and Toubro. Probably you've heard of Larsen and Toubro. I think it's maybe Danish. Larsen is a Danish name, maybe. But it's a big international construction company, and they have also their operation in India. Prabhupada signed a contract with them, and I think we had to pay $70,000 a month. And in those days, that was a huge amount of money. But the Radha Damodar party was going on so powerfully, and it was sending so much money that Prabhupada, he was sending to the BBT, and the BBT was sending money to, so Prabhupada could take that risk. But even that wasn't enough. So, he had the devotees going out collecting money from wealthy Indians, making life members. Like, when I first got there, Lokanath and Sridhar, they were brahmacharis, and they were going out every morning, like, what time? 7:30 in the morning, in taxis into the city. They was all day in the city collecting donation, and come back in the evening. Evening kirtan was, main kirtan wasn't 7 o'clock, it was like 8 o'clock. Let them come back, and then there was the main kirtan in the evening, and prasadam. And after a few weeks, they went to Vrindavan, Lokanath and Sridhar, and they came back with dandas. They were probably gave them sannyas, but they were doing the same thing, going in the morning in a taxi with their dandas and going around all these, wealthy Indians' offices, and coming back in the evening late. So it was the same service, even though they were given sanya. And Prabhupada asked me to manage the temple. I was the vice president. The president was Giriraj, but Prabhupada sent him overseas to visit his family, because he hadn't been back in the States for a long time, maybe since 1970. But also he sent him to collect from wealthy Indians, I think West Indies, maybe Nigeria. I'm not sure about that. He had a plan, I know, to go to Nigeria. Where he went or not, I don't know. But some wealthy Sindhis. So that way, they were collecting Lakshmi. BBT was sending Lakshmi, and the construction then it went on very fast. Although Prabhupada wasn't able to see the actual opening of the temple. The temple, Bombay temple, opened in January 78, just a couple of months after Prabhupada's departure. When Prabhupada went to Bombay in April, maybe it was end of March or early April, after Mayapur festival of 77, the construction of his apartment wasn't finished. The devotees brought him, by taxi by car anyway, to his old apartment in one of the buildings at the back of the land. But Prabhupada said, no, I want to go my new apartment. And so it wasn't finished, but somehow they made some arrangement, and even Prabhupada was staying in there. They were fixing everything, and they got it fixed up. It was very nice. His new apartment was very nice. But it was all powered by book distribution and magazine distribution. So yeah, it did reach 1 million copies a month at one stage. And here also, Germany, was famous for book distribution. Prabhupada was very pleased. I first came to Germany, it might have been 73 or something. Hansaduta invited me over. This is before Schloss Schroedershof. The main temple was in Heidelberg, not in the city center. That later, I think, during Harikesha's time, it was in the city center. But back then, it was in it was a smallish house, sort of I think it was a suburb of Heidelberg. I remember coming, and there was, rows of Volkswagen vans on each side of the road, parked outside with the big posters for Bhagavad Gita. So, Hansaduta had been printing Bhagavad Gita and teaching of Lord Chaitanya in a German language. And I guess back there was a magazine also, I think. So it was a very powerful book distribution here also. And in other parts of this North European zone, Holland, Netherlands was also a big Sankirtan place, big Sankirtan devotees. And they used to do the demonstrations of how to distribute books or how to distribute records like that. They had Sankirtan meetings. Usually, the parties would go out on, I guess, Monday morning. They'd come back on Saturday night. Even in Schloss Radershof, I remember sometimes being there, and the parties would be coming back one after another. There's a big fire there's a kind of a courtyard place, right? And it's an internal sort of. There's a mezzanine floor around with rooms, but there's a big open sort of area downstairs with a big fireplace. So the fire would be burning, and one by one the Sankirtan parties would be coming back, and there'd be ecstatic kirtan going on. And then the next day, the Sunday, they would all clean their vans, and there'd be a nice Sunday feast and a preach to the guests. And then there would be also some Sankirtan seminars in which the Maharatis would demonstrate how to distribute books and then later how to distribute records like that. So it's a very, Germany had a powerful Sankirtan, Germany and there's Netherlands, I think Sweden also. So, Prabhupada is really pushing that book distribution at that time. And brought a lot of Lakshmi, and he was able to build those temples in India. Okay. Yes? Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Jai.